Because they're magnesium deficient. But then they run the MTHFR test and they find out that they have the mutation and they think it's MTHFR. It's just like having back pain and doing an MRI and finding a disc bulge. I have it, you have it, you have it, everybody has MTHFR. It's mutations that might be important. So when you're talking with patients, don't tell them you have MTHFR, because that's basically saying you're a human. Okay? Even so, MTHFR mutations can be problematic. The unfortunate thing is that right now we're in this big swing where methylation is super cool, super important, and it's getting a lot of limelight, which is good that it is. I think the pendulum has swung way too far because people are walking around thinking, I have MTHFR, therefore I need to pound 2 grams of B12 a day. Why? It's not a deterministic gene. It's also a common gene. 70% of the population has at least one mutation in MTHFR. If you think about evolution for a second, would we still have that mutation if it was deadly? No. If it was serious, I mean, it can be serious, but most physicians who dabble in methylation, I think, go a little overboard in just saying, oh, we ran one MTHFR, okay, maybe they'll run the 2 MTHFR mutations, and then based off that, devise this whole methylation thing for you, and they don't even have the whole picture. So it's not a deterministic gene. None of it is. So when you're looking at this stuff from genetics, again, it has to fit into your framework, not a, you have this, so you get this. How are we doing on time? 11:30. Okay. So, in terms of supporting methylation, so these are the big things that that I tend to think about when I'm working with patients on improving their methylation status. The first is we want to improve the efficiency of these enzymes as they're happening. That's our vitamins and minerals, and so our cofactors and coenzymes, okay? Magnesium is a huge, huge one. A lot of patients are going to have methyl cycle dysfunction because they're magnesium deficient. But then they run the MTHFR test and they find out that they have the mutation and they think it's MTHFR. It's just like having back pain and doing an MRI and finding a disc bulge, okay? So we can support with basic cofactors, and I'll show you which supplements I use for that. We can reduce what I call the methylation load. This means, so remember we talked about creatine and choline basically taking up 80% of the methyl donors. So if we want your body to have more methylation potential for other things like DNA repair, DNA production, RNA production, we can augment with things that are going to decrease the methylation load, such as creatine, choline. Sometimes the B vitamins are going to come into play here. And this will allow more useful methylation to occur from your body without actually giving more methyl B12, methyl folate, anything like that. These two are bolded because these are truly, truly the most important. This is what happens in 99% of my patients that we're working on methyl cycle stuff, is these basic things. Then it's using some form of analysis to go that one step further if we hit that wall or that patient is truly not healing, and we say, oh, based on all of this, you actually, on top of this, you probably will do better with the hydroxy B12 and not the methyl B12. And so then we go with a targeted therapeutic there. So the things that are going to decrease or shunt away our S-adenosine methionine is one is oxidative stress, which could be environmental. It could also be predisposed to it genetically, and so that's something else that might come up in our functional genomic analysis. But it's basically increasing this methionine down the CBS pathway, which is going to shunt methionine, homocysteine away from becoming methionine again, and it's just continually draining away down this CBS shunt, and you're losing, and so your body now has to make more, and so that becomes more difficult as opposed to recycling. Inflammation. Inflammation is going to, the Th1, Th17 cytokines, TNF-alpha, IL-6, our pro-inflammatory cytokines chronically are going to take homocysteine away from remethylation back into methionine. And so again, our body has to produce more methionine, and so that's an uphill battle we're working with. 50% of our SAMe is spent to make creatine, 30% phosphatidylcholine. So that means if you want to cover your bases with most of your patients on this aspect, 5 grams of creatine a day, about 2 to 3 grams of phosphatidylcholine.
2 to 5 grams?
2 to 3 for phosphatidylcholine, and then 5 grams for creatine. The other thing that comes up that can deplete SAMe as well, which is going to be more relevant in patients on women on birth control, but also women with estrogen dominance, is that the COMT enzyme metabolizes estrogen, which can deplete SAMe as well. That's one of the reasons why when patients are on oral contraceptives, it's important to replete their B vitamins, because we're seeing methylation changes because of, in part, just the metabolism of estrogen. So Seeking Health is the brand by Dr. Ben Lynch, who methylation master. So you got to trust him a little bit. He has a good magnesium and a trace mineral complex. So these are the two things that, if I'm concerned that patients just have a slowed methyl cycle in general, I'm going to implement these because I just want to increase their ability of those enzymes to function the way they should. You can get phosphatidylcholine from food, obviously. I more so put this up here just because in patients where you have methylation or you have genetic polymorphisms increasing their choline need, it gets really, really difficult to get it from food. Most patients only require about 400 to 600 milligrams a day of choline, which if you look here, you can kind of get from 3 to 4 eggs, 3 to 4 ounces of beef liver. So for most patients who don't have any genetic polymorphisms, food sources of choline are sufficient. It's when we have polymorphisms that need goes up, which that need can go up to the mathematical models, and Chris Masterjohn talks about this quite a bit. I believe it's like 3.2 grams or so is on the high end. If you had every single genetic polymorphism for phosphatidylcholine you needed the most, it'd be about 3 grams a day, which you're looking at about a lot of beef liver and a lot of eggs. Hence why a supplement can come in real big handy here. So Designs for Health has a powdered one, which is much easier. It doesn't taste that great because it's soy lecithin and just kind of tastes like sawdust. But it's much easier to get the higher doses than the capsules, and it's more cost effective than the capsules. Note, you're looking for 2 to 3 grams of phosphatidylcholine, not 2 to 3 grams of soy lecithin, which doesn't give you all the full dose of phosphatidylcholine. Okay, so make sure you're looking at the label. Creatine, 3 to 5 grams a day. Also super interesting. I find creatine super fascinating. Outside of the methylation thing is there's a lot of up and coming research in our mouse model, especially on the use of creatine for reducing inflammation, post-injury and things like that. And so this is a good article to read. It also talks, I mean, even in TBIs and cognitive issues, creatine is super helpful. So the other subset of patients you really want to be considering this in is your vegan vegetarians, or patients who aren't eating a lot of meat products, because that's the #1 way that we get meat or get creatine from our diet is through meat. And so if patients are not eating a lot of meat, there could be an added benefit to doing the creatine on top of the methylation issues. Who does not know about Mytavin or Mytavin, however you want to say it? Okay, phenomenal website, mytavin.com. When you go there, you type in medications, you type in all the medications that you're on or that your patient is on, you hit calculate, it pulls up research to support what vitamins and minerals a patient might be deficient in because of those medications.